Okay, just making sure everything's working. Come on, go live. There we go. Right, we're live. We are live.
Perfect.
We're live. Please do not swear. I don't know why I'm saying that to you. It's not you that's the danger there. Okay, so whilst we're just getting ourselves set up, if I look distracted, it's just because I'm putting it in places, so don't worry. So welcome everyone to our half-term Hot Topics season. Let me know if you're watching us live. I'm just checking it's everywhere that I need it to be. I think it is. I'm going to share it into some groups. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Heidi. I'm the founder of EOTAS Matters. We work supporting parents and carers of neurodivergent children who need EHCPs and education support for their children and young people, particularly those with barriers to attendance. Today, I'm joined by Deborah Hayward from Aced Qualifications, Aced Communications, but it's Aced Qualifications, Aced. And we're going to talk about alternatives to GCSEs, because for a lot of our families, for a lot of our children and young people, GCSEs are not accessible, not appropriate, whatever that might be. So Debs has very kindly come to do a half-term Hot Topics session specifically on alternatives to traditional GCSEs. What she doesn't know about this is not worth knowing. I'm going to hand over to her so she can do a proper introduction, tell you what she's going to speak about and how she's going to speak. If you are watching this live and you would like a copy of this, please take a look at the comments. You will find a link to my newsletter. If you sign up for my newsletter on my website, we will send a replay of this out later today. You'll also find it on my YouTube channel. Okay, I'm going to put your slides up for you, Debs, and then I'll let you crack on.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Debs. Firstly, I apologise. I've got a sinus cold, so I'm a bit nasally. Hopefully you can understand what I'm saying and I don't sound too nasally online. And a little bit of a caveat, we're going to be talking about GCSEs and alternatives, just to give a little bit of kind of insight in where to start your research journey in terms of finding something that's going to be suitable and accessible for your learner. We're not going to necessarily discuss about funding because you might be watching as a viewer from different circumstances. You might be a notice learner or a family that's home educating and looking for qualifications for your learner. So we're not going to deal necessarily with the funding aspect, but more where to start your research journey and hopefully put bay to some kind of fears or apprehensions around having to do GCSEs. And I know it causes or can cause families a lot of anxiety when they're thinking, I've now got to put my learner through GCSEs and I don't know where to start and I don't know what I'm meant to be doing and how am I even going to approach the topic of GCSE. So kind of that's the standing point that we're going to go from. I don't know, Heidi, if you've got anything else. I know you've got some other things coming up to discuss.
Yeah, so this is kind of part of a series of bits and pieces that we've put together for you. So there are some other things on their way to you. Specifically, I've got a training coming on the 17th of March. You can get access to that on my website. That is specifically if you do have a child who needs to take exams, how you can make arrangements for them, because a lot of our children and young people and our learners are not able to access education and exams in a traditional school environment. So we've got that coming up. And I'll also share with you that if you want to access any of our resources, our marble run is half price this half term. If you use the code half term, it's normally £27 a month. If you use that code, you'll be able to join for £13.50 for the whole of this week. So that's part of our offering for half term. So yeah.
Perfect. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides, but we have put together a bit of a freebie that Heidi's going to send out as well. So don't worry, everything that we've covered will be in that freebie kind of document as well for hopefully some additional information. So let's make a start with the very first question. Do you actually need GCSEs? I know in mainstream that would be the normal route for most students and to take a number of GCSEs, but actually where you stand is there's no actual obligation to take GCSEs or any standardized tests or public exams. So I think that's kind of like a really important, first step to think about. You don't actually need GCSEs. You've got to think about what is right for your learner and when it's right for your learner, and how you're going to go and plan that route for them, their learning journey. I think everyone listening will completely agree that not one size fits all approach, and GCSEs might not be suitable for your learner. So what other options are there? Thinking about the world of work in the future, a lot of employers will ask for 5, but that's down to the employer. And also, if you're thinking about next steps, they might want a number, whether it's 3, 5 GCSEs or GCSE alternatives. Most colleges don't ask for any more than 5. So I know when students in a mainstream setting will actually take many more, 8, 10, 12 even, which is quite ridiculous. But most colleges won't ask for more than 5. And they also offer possibilities of taking further qualifications with them. So if you're thinking that you've got a learner, you don't want them to take 8, 10, 12 GCSEs. You want to be a bit more choosy in what their educational path looks like. Try not to worry, because if you are planning your next steps to go to a college, maybe it's an apprenticeship or a level 3 qualification in an area that they are more interested in, if they don't have the English and the maths, for example, they will offer or often offer a package where they can retake or take level 2s in maths and English as well. Yeah. So I think the first step is really think about where are their next steps going to be, what's your plan, and make that decision inform what you're going to do now. So ask your local college if you're thinking that might be what they do in the future, and speak to the admissions team.
Go on, sorry. I think that's something that comes up a lot for our EOTAS families, because I think children who've been through traditional education, there's this expectation a lot, particularly for those of our kids who are academically able, that they're going to do 10, 11 GCSEs, and then something happens, like this happened with Theo, crashed out of school, wasn't able to be in school anymore. It wasn't that he wasn't academically capable of doing 11 GCSEs, but he was in burnout and at home and really unwell. So we took that approach of, what does he want to do next? What do they need? Yeah. How do we get what they need? And his college that he did his level 3 at, they would have taken him with just functional skills because he was an EHCP student. Yeah. So they're going to cover functional skills. So that's super important. And as parents, I think we have to unpick that for ourselves around, don't tell yourself your child has to do 11 GCSEs. Like, think about what route they want to take. Theo got 5 and he's now at university. So it's not a barrier to onward study.
No, and the further you go on, if you're going to take, one next step and then the following next step, GCSEs become less and less important. Yeah. So what you've got to, the purpose it serves is getting you to the next step, and try not to worry too much kind of in the future of where that's going to lead to. So if you're going to study or take an alternative, they can be quite tricky sometimes to take from home, but there are alternatives out there. So there's vocational and creative courses that you can complete online. There's level 1 and level 2 qualifications with different awarding bodies such as NCFEs, BTECs, MVQs, things like that. And I just think it's really important that the learner has the opportunity to take something that they're actually interested and passionate in, rather than just taking a bunch of core subjects because you think that's important. So different options. There's iGCSEs. Now, iGCSEs are quite popular in the home ed community. The reason being is that you often can complete those from home online, but there is a but. Those tend to be more exam-based options. So you can take exam-based iGCSEs from home, They often have things like you sign up for a set time, you need to be able to record yourself. Quite often you have to have 2 different devices and have it recording the learner completing the exam kind of in real time, but it is possible. There are other recognised level 1 and 2 courses, like we're going to talk about different options in a few slides on. There are functional skills qualifications for maths, English and ICT as well. There are BTECs. Sometimes college will, your local college will offer 14 to 16 routes as well. They're not everywhere, unfortunately, and it really depends on what area you live in, but many colleges offer that as an option. That is good because then you won't be footing the bill as a private candidate, which is another factor that really isn't very helpful in the whole kind of fairness of looking after our learners, our children. But the price of the qualification is going to be a factor as well. And then we've got online providers that can offer those qualifications as part of their provision. So there are kind of different options that we're going to speed through. So the pros and cons in GCSEs, I'm not going to read that out. You're welcome to read it out. I hope that's not my computer pinging. Hopefully you won't be able to hear that. The wonders of linking everything to your computer via iPad.
I think it's me commenting, giving people links, so don't worry.
So GCSEs, we think of GCSEs because that's the normal route, isn't it, for learners at schools. And I don't hide my phone just in case it's that. And we all kind of have an understanding of what a GCSE means because it's a little bit more mainstream. If you're going for a job afterwards, if you're going to college or a level 3 straight A-level course, a GCSE is, you kind of understand what a GCSE is and what it looks like. But there are things like coursework or controlled assessments or exams associated with those. So sometimes they can be a little bit of a barrier to our learners, particularly if it's got a high percentage exam. I'm not a fan of exams. I'm a fan of vocational qualifications, but that's my personal view. The cons of GCSEs, if you are going to be funding this yourself, if you're home educating or an EOTAS learner, where are you going to be able to take that GCSE? It can be quite difficult. Sometimes you can be registered as a private candidate with your local school or college, or an external exam centre, but there are fees associated with that. And so the coursework and the control assessment aspect can be quite difficult to do. And that's why creative and more vocational subjects can be difficult to take as a GCSE. And that's why alternative qualifications are so important. And obviously, you know, the stress involved with GCSEs is really significant, and the anxiety that they create, where a learner might be having, you know, going through lots of anxiety anyway. The added burden of GCSE exams can really be absolutely detrimental to their well-being. iGCSEs, I think I broached on that before. iGCSEs can be a popular route because you can take exam based from home. There are qualifications that allow you to do that. I would suggest that you start off by looking at independent and online providers to see which iGCSEs you can do. Now, it's a pro and a con. The pro is that you can take that exam online, but the con is that it's going to be exam based, and you might not want to be putting your learner through that anxiety of an exam based iGCSE. Functional skills, I think most people have heard of functional skills now. They offer a route into kind of next steps and colleges that they offer English, Maths and ICT. Functional skills is a qualification, but there are different awarding bodies that offer functional skills. There isn't just one awarding body. So you can do a little bit of research and find out, that I know NCFE, Pearson's, for example, they all offer functional skills. You can take them as level 1s and level 2s. Level 2 is more equivalent to a GCSE. And a little bit later on, we're going to be talking about what to look for and kind of how to kind of categorize that qualification. A functional skill, I did research into what the credit value of a functional skill is. Now, that depends on the awarding body, but often the credit value is not as high as a GCSE. So if you did level 2 level 2 functional skills, it's the same level comparatively to say a GCSE in English and Maths, but it hasn't the same weighting necessarily, which is why some places will see it as an inferior qualification. But again, it goes back to speaking to your local college and will they accept that in place of? And I think most do, actually.
It's also worth mentioning that if you have a learner with an EHCP, those colleges particularly are much more likely to consider those alternative qualifications rather than GCSEs, because they know that those learners are not necessarily going through the traditional education route for whatever reason that may be. And colleges do have a funding weighting for children and young people who have special educational needs in EHCPs. So sometimes it's one time when having an EHCP can absolutely work in your favour, because it can kind of swing the door open for a child or a young person that might not on paper meet the entrance criteria for the particular line of study that they want to do.
Absolutely. And I think we'll probably go back to it at the end, but there was a comment, will a uni or an employer kind of accept these? There is no straight answer, unfortunately. Each college, each university, each employer, it will be up to them how informed they are, how they're able, like you just said, Heidi, to take on board other considerations, whether they will accept it or not. But there's no one straight answer. I can't say, yes, every single one will accept an alternative exactly the same as GCSE. There are some university degree subjects where they won't accept a functional skills. My suggestion would be I know it's very difficult, because if you're looking at GCSEs, you probably have no idea, one, if your learner even wants to go to university, if that's a route for them, and two, what subject would they be studying. But if they're going to go and study English literature, I would suggest perhaps not completing a functional skills in English for you. It will affect some universities. But again, that isn't a straight answer, yes or no. I know they do accept it. And I know that sometimes their criteria will be that they can't accept it. So it really depends on the uni, the college, the course that you're going to. And as we said, whether they're going to be flexible and taking on board the considerations for your learner as well. So I think that's, all this information is really important to kind of have a general understanding and the awareness of what's going to be the most suitable, and if you think that functional skills is achievable, but a GCSE isn't, then it's worth doing the functional skills, even if it might limit a few options later on. If they can't access a GCSE, then they don't have it anyway. So, it might be a gateway into something in the future
There's
further
also
down the
something
line.
to be said for if you've had a learner that's been out of education for a little while. Sometimes we had this with Theo, like him being able to take a functional skills exam was a really key step in him feeling confident again about being assessed, because he was capable of achieving, you know, the pass and the functional skills. That was never any question, but he was terrified of assessments and exams. So it's not just the qualification, is it? It's all part of, I know your approach is a very holistic approach. It's about how do we empower our children and young people and our young learners to feel confident in those assessment environments. And that can be a really nice lower demand way to get a route back into that way of being assessed.
So there's two things there. One, and my mind's gone blank, so I have no idea which either of those two things are.
Sure, they were genius.
They were. They will come to me in a second. Oh, there we go. Timelines. I think we sometimes can forget because we're so kind of thinking about a normal time frame in a mainstream school, and think that we've got these 2 years between their ages of 14 and 16 to do a level 2 or GCSE qualification, and that's my timeline. But you know, it doesn't have to be that way. So if for example functional skills is an appropriate for you at this moment in time, doesn't mean in the future that you can't do a GCSE in maths or English if you find that is what you now need. You know, it doesn't have to be between a very tight time frame, and you know, your path can change, and that is okay. The second thing, just to note, even though functional skills aren't quite weighted equally to a GCSE, doesn't mean that it's easier. You know, I just want to put that misconception out there that often I'll hear people say that functional skills maths is going to be easy. It's not easy. It's not an easy option. And actually, if your learner, for example, functional skills, because it's meant to be related to real life a little bit more, a lot of the mathematical questions are very wordy, putting real life scenarios and things like that into their teaching. And for some people, they find that even harder to navigate. I think I would too, as a dyslexic
playing to the strengths of the learner, isn't it? It's like kind of more in there.
That wouldn't work for me. I wouldn't want lots of these wordy mathematical questions and scenarios, real life scenarios. I want pure maths, thank you very much, because I've got a logical way of thinking. I can do that. So be prepared and do a little bit of research and think what is suitable for your learner. And it doesn't necessarily mean functional skills easy. I can do that. So just putting that out there as well.
Sorry, keep going.
So I've got a blanket level 1 and level 2 qualifications. So I'm not going to go and talk about every single different type. They are alternatives to GCSEs. It could be, we're talking about NVQs, NCFEs, City and Guilds, BTECs. All of those can be under an umbrella term of level 1 and level 2 qualification. So a level 1, if you don't know, that's equal to a GCSE. We're talking old money. D to G, or 1 to 3 if new money. And a level 2 qualification, that is level 2 GCSE, A to C, or 4 to 9. Okay, so that's the difference between a level 1 and a level 2. It's where it sits on the GCSE qualification. And what I would say is level 2s, particularly because they're a bit more of a stepping stone onto a level 3 or an A-level course. They are kind of widely accepted. I say widely, I can't give 100% guarantee that they are going to be accepted. The reason being a little bit different from level 3 and A levels, where they have UCAS points. It's very easy to see what your qualification is worth. It's a bit more in black and white. You're doing a course, it's worth 16 UCAS points, and there you go. You can use it. Your university will say you need X amount of UCAS points to be able to follow that course. With level 1s and level 2s, they don't have UCAS points. They get assigned a credit value, but it is up to your individual college whether they will accept in place of a GCSE. And it's just something to be really mindful of, and another question to ask when you're thinking about next steps. Will your local college accept this qualification in place of a GCSE? And it's just a question you need to ask and just be informed about. I think I've talked about the pros and cons in one go, but let me just have a look. The cons, okay, it might not be widely recognised by employers or educational institutions as GCSEs are. Some alternatives might be limited in subject options. And some level 1 or level 2 qualifications may still have, high stake assessments, controlled assessments, and that can cause stress and anxiety, just like a GCSE does as well.
Can I ask you a question, Deb? You may not know the answer to this. It's someone on Instagram asking, do you know if there is a way around sitting functional skills instead of GCSE exams? My son has an EHCP. He's in mainstream. He's hanging on by his teeth. But I've been told that he needs to fail his GCSEs first before they'll enter him for his functional skills tests. So I'm thinking that I've told them that they should go back and ask for a copy of the policy. Yeah. Do you know whether there's anything like formal? I haven't heard of anything formal in that way.
Absolutely not. It's the school's policy. Yeah, they are putting it down onto the learner, and that's because they might not. I don't know whether the school actually offer functional skills or not. They might not offer it, and so kind of implementing a whole course, they might not have the ability to do that, but they might be able to signpost you to where you can access that.
I think because the child has an EHCP, there's something to be raised there in terms of have a look at the policy from the school, take a look at your young person's outcomes in the EHCP. I'm assuming, and I'm perhaps incorrectly assuming, that we're talking about this summer. If we're not talking about this summer and we're talking about next summer, it might be that it's worth requesting an annual review and looking at having those outcomes changed in terms of what the academic outcomes are expected for your child or young person, because there's no way that they should be blocking alternatives to qualifications if your child is not in the right place to take GCSEs.
If they can't provide it, what can they do about it?
Yeah, what accommodations are they making? Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Debs.
That's right. And just a brief kind of comparison so you can have a look. So a credit value is given to a qualification. I'll go through that in a second as well. And it's just a method of being able to see so that you can compare different qualifications against each other. Now, if you are taking an alternative qualification, it's going to improve the chances that a college will accept it in place of if it's of a comparative value. So, for example, Silver Arts Award, brilliant qualification, access into art, helps the learner develop a portfolio and develop their skills. It has a credit value of 10. Now, an average GCSE has between 12 and 15. And because it's slightly less than a GCSE, quite often a college won't accept it in place of a GCSE. Doesn't mean it doesn't have value. Doesn't mean that it wouldn't help the learner get onto a level 3 art course, because you don't necessarily have to have the level 2 to get onto the level 3. But just be mindful that they might not accept it. If they're putting conditions like you must have 3 GCSEs or 5 GCSEs or alternatives, they might not accept it in place of. So a GCSE or an IGCSE tends to have a credit value of 12 to 15, whether it's classed as a level 1 or a level 2. Not that you need to kind of compare that, that you're thinking about the grading value. So A to C, level 2, D to G, level 1, and with the numbers as well. I hate the numbers. Why the numbers? Let's not go into that. Functional skills. So again, they're level 2, a level 2 qualification or a GCSE, but that might not have the same weighting. So again, that's the reasoning behind why some might not accept it in place of, or they might not accept it as an alternative. But again, they're becoming more and more popular. People do know about these. You know, functional skills is a qualification that I would say most people have heard of. So the chances of these colleges or taking them on board and accepting it in place of, it's becoming more and more likely. You just have to be aware that it is down to them to make that decision, and there's no blanket, you must accept it, college, because it is down to their individual admissions policy. BTEC level 2 certificates. Now, there's all sorts of different BTECs, but just to give an example, a level 2 certificate has a credit value of 15, and we have level 2 NCFEs as well. The credit value will vary depending on the course that you're taking. So when looking for a qualification, where do you start? How should you choose a qualification, and what kind of things you need to bear in mind? So you need to think about, what is the level compared to GCSE, level 1, level 2? Is it a recognised qualification? Yeah. Is it officially recognised by the RQF? And that really helps others kind of take on board and will their acceptance of that qualification, if it's a recognised qualification or not. The credit size, so that's its weighting. That's determined by the qualifications credit framework. And just as a rule of thumb, 10 hours of learning equals 1 credit. So if you see a qualification that has a credit value of 10, it means it thinks the average learner would need a total number of 100 hours to be able to complete that course. That gives you a good idea on how to weight the GCSE. If you're going to compare that to GCSEs, a GCSE has a credit value of 12 to 15. So if you want this alternative qualification that you're thinking of taking to be accepted, I would see if it is more comparable to the same weighting of a GCSE. It's going to be more likely to be accepted, if that makes sense. So if your learner's relying on the qualification for their next steps, whether it's an alternative qualification and you want it to be accepted in place of a GCSE, as I said, it's up to the individual college or HE establishment to make that judgment. So I would say check with the admissions team directly, speak to them. Know what your qualification is worth, have all that information. So know the level, know the awarding body, know the credit value if you can find out that information as well. So if you've got all that information armed, you can go to the admissions team, because sometimes the person you speak to might not be aware of the qualification that they're doing. And that leads me on to, don't be afraid to question the response. If the first person you speak to says, oh, no, we're not going to accept that, don't just accept their answer, their initial answer, because they might not have all the information. Speak to the curriculum leader, perhaps, of the course that you are wanting to, or just somebody higher up who may have a better grasp of alternative qualifications. And I have seen that offering alternative qualifications myself. I'd say 99.9 will accept it in place of a GCSE. I've got some qualifications that are actually comparable to 2 GCSEs. Not all places will accept it in place of 2. They'll say, I'll accept it in place of 1, but not 2. And I've had maybe 2 people in the last 2 years come back to me and say, oh, my college wouldn't accept it. And I've said, go back to them, speak to them, ask to speak to somebody else. And then the parent and the family have come back to me and said, oh, actually, they've changed their mind. They've said, yes, they will. So it really does help to know your stuff, know your research, and question it. Sorry, I'm just going to clear my throat. I'm really sorry.
All right. So important. Like I kind of like, we say this to our parents all the time. Think of it like when you're a difficult toddler or a difficult 6-year-old and mum says no, so you go and ask your dad. That's what you do when you're a parent trying to advocate for your children or young people. If computer says no, first of all, Don't ask a computer, ask someone else. Keep asking until you get the right answer.
Keep going.
Very few of these situations are absolute. There's a lot of like ticking of boxes and initial like scan past. But when it comes to our children and young people, especially those with special educational needs, we are entitled to reasonable adjustments under the Equality Act, and it's worth pushing back if you feel like you're not getting the answer you should be getting.
Absolutely. And don't feel that you have to have the level 2 equivalent to be able to access a level 3 or a level course. It doesn't mean that, you know, they will probably
most post-16 colleges will let you do a level 2 alongside your level 3 studies, won't they?
As well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's you know, if you, for example, you want to do politics at level 3, you might think that you need to do politics at a level 2. You don't, because most schools don't offer a huge range of different subjects. It's not until you get to your level 3s or your A levels where you're really kind of looking at specific courses for you, and you might not have had that. You know, they're not necessarily expecting the level 2 to go on to the level 3. It sometimes helps, depends what it is. You know, if it's a core subject, English, maths, yes, they are going to expect you to have a level 2 to go on to progress onto the level 3. But for other wider subjects, it's not always the case.
Yeah.
So signposting on where to look. And again, I'm talking from a perspective that my learners will be often self-funded. So I'm sure Heidi can put a stance on, you know, where to ask for help for EOTAS learners that might have a package. But online learning platforms, is really important to think of those 3 things that we talked about on the previous slide. You know, is it an accredited qualification? Does it have credit value? What's the level? Have that information when investigating online learning platforms. You might have a distance learning college. There's a few options. Even the Open University offers some lower level qualifications as well. So that might be somewhere to investigate further. The local college, they are going to be a good source of information. Even if you're unsure whether your learner is going to be going there or not, it might be a good source of information in terms of what they could possibly provide and what do you need, what is their criteria. Private tutors, you might have private tutor, you might have some learners here that really need one-to-one support. Some tutors kind of pair up with other establishments. I'm thinking like tutors and exams, for example. So where the tutor might be able to offer the support and guidance through the qualification, but might be able to signpost you to the exam as well. Home education groups, try your local Facebook home ed group. Brilliant source of information, full of really knowledgeable people that know their stuff and generally overwhelmingly helpful. So get yourself attached to a home ed Facebook group if you want to ask specific questions or find out, you know, how other people tackled it. What do they do? You've got exam centres. And don't forget apprenticeships as well. I think they're brilliant. I've got a couple of real life experiences. I asked on my page, my Facebook group, for learners not necessarily taking a qualification with me, but taking an alternative qualification and why they opted for that. And the reasonings behind it. And so I did ask for a few people. Shall I read them out? I don't know. Whether it's useful, but so one person, they've chosen an NCFE level 2 qualification. They opted for GCSE alternative because they had a learner with emotionally based school avoidance. It meant that anything remotely looking like curriculum and exams was out of the question. They had to have their learning supported with their own mentor as well. I do believe this was part of a package,
An EOTAS package, sounds like
an EOTAS package as well, and we were able, as a provider, to be flexible and work alongside them with that. And they've just said their advice is to don't hesitate, despite every single one of our many challenges, which there were much flexibility with this program. Somebody else, they were taking an alternative qualification, not with me, but their daughter just finished off an alternative. It led to her traveling the country and having backstage tours and experiences. Sounded amazing. Nothing she could get while sat in the classroom. Then doing them at her own meant time focus could be given when it was needed and not when it was ordered, while GCSEs that she was doing needed to be spread out to fit in with exam dates. If it wasn't for the exams, then she could have done another alternative as well. It's just adding that level of restriction. And then another person doing an NCFE level 2 sport qualification, she needed that to get onto a level 3 with a rugby program, quite a specialised thing that they were doing. But she couldn't do PE from home, so that she was able to take a level 2 alternative, and now she's doing an elite rugby program, which is quite amazing.
Amazing. I think it's really important as well for those of us who have children, young people who have kind of dropped out of school. I hate the word drop out, but fallen out of the school system. Let's use that word instead. Like Helen's saying here, you know, like it's hard not to be bitter because I had a young person who's predicted 9s across the board and now won't be able to because of a failed system. And she's found this really helpful. This is one of these occasions where we have to do a little bit of work for ourselves as parents of kind of ditching that expectation and telling ourselves that it's okay that our children are taking a different route. You know, certainly for us, we had a year of EOTAS. Had a year of very kind of like he did ASDANs. Sorry, I had to think about then what he was doing, which is an alternative. And he also did functional skills and a couple of GCSEs with mentors and tutors, all home-based, because he had emotional-based school avoidance. And then that got him back into a mainstream pathway and did a level 3 that was a vocational level 3. Now he's at university doing a vocational degree. He's doing zoo management, animal studies. He is finding that the students alongside him who did do the traditional path don't have the practical application that he has. So he's worked in a zoo in one role or another, either as a volunteer or as a trainee keeper or as a member of the education team for over 2.5 years. He's in classrooms with learners who have had no hands-on experience. He said to me last week, there's a kid in my class that didn't know how to pick up a rabbit. Do you know what I mean? So, and he's like used to all of that. That set him in really good stead for him getting onto that course. And it's also a really valuable experience for him when he qualifies. So for lots of our children and young people, those different routes are absolutely strengths. It's just we have to work through that expectation that we have had hammered into us that our kids will do 11 GCSEs and then 3 A levels and then they'll go to university. You know, our children do things differently, and that's what this is all about, right?
Absolutely, wholeheartedly. I think qualifications are a really great option. I wouldn't say, you know, that other more academic GCSEs don't have their place. They absolutely do, but you know, you've got to see what's right for you and what's right for your learner. Coming from a creative point of view, I love vocational qualifications because ultimately it's the doing of the thing, not the exam at the end, that's important. You know,
and if you've got a learner that says, when am I ever going to need this? Like vocational qualifications are for those kind of learners, right? When will I ever need to be able to do a simultaneous equation? I don't know. I still don't know where they are.
Without going down a rabbit hole of, it's kind of pointless, the exam anyway, because you know, if you're anything like me, you stuff that kind of retention in, regurgitate an exam, and then it's like shift over for the real important stuff, and it's gone. And what is the point in that at all? You know, we've got to learn, we've got to develop key skills, not remembering facts. But that's for another talk.
Right.
Well, I've just got my slide of some information. If you're interested in anything that I've got to provide, there's the courses that we currently offer and ways of getting in touch with me if you would like to ask any questions or whether you'd like a prospectus. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Please do come and find Debs. We've known each other for a little while, and the work that they do over at Aced Qualifications is just priceless. I'm so grateful for your time today, Debs. It's been amazing.
No
for people who want to get a replay of this, please head over to my website. Make sure you're on my mailing list, and then we will make sure everyone gets a mailer out. I'm going to put this up as well for you. Our Marble Run is our online subscription, our online membership for parents and carers in neurodivergent homes. For half term, if you use the code half term, you'll get it for half price. So you'll pay £13.50 rather than £27 for your first month. You can cancel anytime. Just use the code half term. And we have also got an additional session for those of you who do want to make arrangements for your EOTAS students on GCSEs specifically, well, exam arrangements for EOTAS students. That's on the 17th of March. It's £7, or if you're a Marble Run member, it's free. So just make sure that you come and find us. Come and find me. Come and find Debs. Like, we're here to help you. That's what we want to do. Helen says, I keep reminding myself as they want to work in astrophysics and all things space that Tim Peake failed his exams and went in another way. Right. Let's not forget that Richard Branson is dyslexic as heck. There are plenty of people who are successful in business and in academia and in entrepreneurialism and in life, and how we define success is not based on how many GCSEs our kids got. Not to take anything away from GCSEs and those who want to go that route, but we just really wanted to spend this time together this morning to help you understand that there are options, and it's not the end of the world if your child cannot take traditional GCSEs. In fact, far from it. So do come and find Debs. Do come and find me. Make sure you're on my mailing list. If you are like, I don't know what to do, just stick a comment in here. Just put mailing list in the comments. I'll make sure that you get a link, and then you can have a replay and a copy of Deb's excellent freebie that goes along with this presentation. Thanks so much, Debs. Really appreciate you giving us your time today.
No problem at all.
Absolutely amazing. Stay with me. We'll say goodbye off screen, but for now, goodbye everyone. Thanks for being with us today, and we'll see you again on Thursday for the next of our half-term hot topics at 12 o'clock. See you later.
Bye-bye.